Morning, Mindy. Okay, let's close our eyes for a moment. Again. We're halfway in the course, lesson 19. Today also we start with pranayama, but first we discuss the final chakra, Sahasrara chakra. Sahasrara chakra is the crown chakra, and it is the only chakra that is located outside the physical body. You see in art, especially in the past, past literature and art was all centered around spirituality and religion. I separate the two, spirituality and religion. In the end they became one, but that's a story for another time. But what you see in art from the past are examples of the crown chakra. And you see those examples when a saint, a Buddha or a Christ is pictured. And the crown chakra is symbolized by a ball of light around the head. We call it a halo. That ball of light literally is light. It's a ball of energy. And people possessing that kind of light stand out, because with energy being at that level, special qualities awaken in the human being. Wisdom, natural wisdom occurs. Not from studying many books and getting degrees, but from pure insight. Deep insight results from energy in this chakra. Unconditional love, or universal love, which means that you not only care about yourself, but you care about society, you care about the environment. Even society or environment or other people's interest rises above your personal interest. You sacrifice naturally, without having the feeling that you're losing something. On the contrary, you gain, you feel. Still, there are symbolical expressions of crown chakra, which is literally the crown. The crown manufactured out of gold and precious stones like diamonds, that still today kings and queens wear. Why do kings and queens wear this typical expression of active crown chakra? because especially a leader, and a king or a queen is of course a leader of a country, of a people, a leader has to have these qualities. When a leader does not possess the qualities of the crown chakra, chaos occurs in society. Conflict, unnecessary conflict. And again, I grab back to a very helpful example by comparing the current situation in the United States with the situation before. I'm talking, of course, about the current president and the president before. The president before seems to have possessed the power of the crown chakra, while the current president, he may have some of it, but I don't really see it. I leave that up to every individual to judge. But you can clearly see the enormous chaos, not only in that particular country alone, but worldwide, as a result of this. So crown chakra sounds like something from an ancient past, from a fairy tale, from ancient religious scriptures and paintings, but it is very real. And it is rare for people to possess these qualities, because energy in most people is simply not available at the level of the crown chakra. And that's very interesting, because now everything that you have learned so far is falling into place. Because we have talked about harmony, we have talked about Shiva and Shakti energy, Sattva, harmony. And the thing with the crown chakra is that it only becomes active, including the manifestation of those wonderful higher characteristics, as we call them, when there is Sattva. It is because of Sattva that energy rises up naturally. So, from lesson 1, what we have done is, first we have built our capital, our most precious asset, by doing all these difficult and hard exercises. The purpose of undergoing these exercises you learned in the subject of tapas, or austerity. You create energy through strength. Energy equals strength, equals, eventually, sattva. If you practice yoga correctly, and that is why it is important that you practice correctly, standing still, leading to sattva, that automatically leads to the phenomenon that energy rises up. And that phenomenon we call kundalini, if that energy is rising up in large amounts. Interestingly, every human being, regardless of status or nationality or culture, has these wonderful royal characteristics available. But they are latent. Latent means that they are asleep. They do not manifest, they do not express themselves until you do something as strange as practicing yoga, real yoga. Energy starts to rise, and very naturally these energy rises up, very naturally these characteristics, wisdom, universal love, intuition, deep insight, they start to manifest naturally. I'm pretty certain that most of you have already started, at least a little bit, to manifest those characteristics. So it sounds very complicated, it sounds even very mysterious, but in practice it's actually very simple. All you have to do is practice yoga correctly. that is not all based on your increasing sensitivity and consciousness. There are adjustments that need to be made into your life. The crown chakra requires sattva. Sattva is generated, created, when you practice yoga. But you don't practice yoga 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Regular practice more and more leads to sattva also outside of your yoga practice. But now that you have become more sensitive and conscious, you start to notice that there are factors in life, there are circumstances, there are issues in daily life that disturb your peace of mind, that destroy your sattva. And then you need to go to work and start making adjustments. Simple and practical situations like the work environment, the home environment, the amount of activities that you have in a day. Strange enough, we live in a society where the busier the better, but we have an opposite point of view, because the busier, the less sattva you will be able to generate. The less busy, the more sattva can occur. I'll give you some examples. When I started practicing yoga, I practiced yoga every evening before sleep for a year, and it led me to the very urgent realization that I had to leave home. I was living in the home where I was born, with the family that I was part of. And one of my realizations was that that was disturbing my sattva. Of course, at that time, I couldn't put it into words the way that I do now. I didn't rationally understand. But the need to leave and be on my own was very serious and very urgent. So at the age of 20, I found a house to live on my own. Another example is when you go to a company, especially big companies where they have lots of space, you always see that the management of the company, the higher management, the board of directors, the president of the company, the CEO, they are totally isolated from the rest of the company. I have very clearly observed that before I came to Korea when I was working. I was working I work in the tropical plant business. Companies that can afford it, they hire me to take care of their plants. Because plants always die. Sometimes they get water, sometimes they don't. Sometimes one person takes care of them, sometimes they think someone else will do it. So plants in companies always die. But modern human science shows that a harmonious environment in the company stimulates productivity. And plants are an important part of creating a nice atmosphere in a company. So when companies are profitable, instead of paying a lot of tax, they then create a budget for certain things that are kind of luxury, but rather than just paying all the profits to the tax office, to the tax authorities, they improve the environment for the employees. And one of the things they do is to install very nice plants and have a contract to have them taken care of. And when they die, we replace them. You can see, if you start to look around, you see those plants also in Korea, in big buildings, like insurance companies, banks, hospitals, and many of the other big companies. Hanwha, the headquarters of Hanwha 63 building, Hyundai, Samsung, most of these companies have their plants taken care of. That was my job for a couple of years before I came to Korea. So I had a car with all the equipment, and I would travel around the northern province of Holland, and I would visit all the small and big offices of the national banks, ABN, ING, AMRO, but also insurance companies, just industrial manufacturing, big manufacturing companies. And interestingly, the headquarters, where the board of directors, where the management is located, is always structured in a certain way. In the lowest floors, you have the what do you call it? Where they produce all the paperwork. So all the documents are being printed, and so you have the print shop, the lowest floors, and the building management. Then you go higher up, and the higher you go, the higher the functions of the people working there. Then the highest 2 or 3 floors are usually closed off. You need a key or an electronic card to tell the elevator to go higher. If you don't have a key or an electronic card, you have no access to those floors. What do? They create an atmosphere of sattva in which the board of directors, the CEO, has the peace of mind to manifest the higher royal characteristics, allowing them to make big decisions about billions of dollars. Huge money is involved in those decisions. It's very important that they get it right. So lots of money is spent. The carpet is very thick. There are butlers walking around that prepare fresh fruit and coffee, tea, whatever they need. And they have an office that is very big as this room, for example, with a mahogany desk and bay windows, so they have a wonderful view over the city, and pure silence. There are usually 2 secretaries that keep everybody out, including me. So it happened often, especially at the national airport, international airport, Schiphol, where there was one particular secretary that was like a bulldog. She will always refuse us access. That's her job. Her job is to keep, not only create, but to keep sattva from the CEO of Schiphol Airport. Interestingly, if we would meet the guy, the CEO, in the corridor, he was always very jovial, very friendly, very nice, and he would always guide us past the secretary into his room to take care of his plans. What is this all about? It's about creating, superficially, paradise. Sattva is a condition that is paradise. We don't need very luxurious thick carpet. We don't need marble walls. We don't need butlers to serve us and a big mahogany desk. What we need as yogis is our mat and our cushion. What am I trying to tell you here? Is that sattva is not only about practicing yoga, it is about listening to your increased sensitivity and consciousness and making adjustments. It is the reason why I've told you several times already, with a smile, that my life is like a hermit. I live like a hermit, unduncha in Korean. Only coming into action when it is necessary, but no unnecessary activities, because that just feels like a distraction, it feels like a disturbance. In the past, before practicing yoga, before experiencing sattva, you couldn't be busy enough. You're always looking for activities, always looking for excitement, always looking for enjoyment. And you think that that is good until you find sattva and you realize that even those positive experiences are actually disturbing, distracting. So create your own space, also literally, if possible. If not possible, then keep it in mind for something you want to do in the future. Little by little, more and more, create your own space where you can just totally be with yourself, in silence if you like, or playing music if you like, but you are in charge, you are the boss, you decide. And very naturally, more and more, you just want to be there in silence. It is in that kind of environment that you will very naturally, without effort, have very deep insights about yourself, about life, about your future, about your dharma, your heart's content. Your true characteristics, self with a capital S, will gradually manifest very naturally. I know that the things that we discuss here sound like theories and it sounds very complicated, but everything that we talk about here is a natural result, occurs naturally, spontaneously, simply as a result of practicing yoga correctly. Creating sattva and allowing things, allowing developments, allowing characteristics to manifest that simply did not occur before. And that's the reason why all of your lives will change, little by little, but inevitably. Not even a little, but over time, you will transform completely. So crown chakra literally is the crown on top of all the work that we do. It is the goal where we want to be. It is the 7th chakra from the bottom. And interestingly, without being aware of this, there are expressions that, if you understand the chakra system, relate to this, being in 7th heaven. Have you ever heard of that expression? It's typically English. 7th heaven. Where does this number 7 come from? It's from Sahasrara chakra. There is a drink. It's very old. It's called 7-Up. You're laughing, but why was it called 7-Up? Not 8-Up or 6-Up? Because the implication is that if you drink this drink, which in Korean, by the way, is called cider, but in Europe and England, America, it's called 7-Up. 7-Up cider is the same. The implication is, the marketing strategy is to make you believe that if you drink 7-Up, you go to heaven. The 7th chakra from the bottom. Every one of you in life has had moments that you have experienced paradise or heaven. It doesn't happen often, and it happens kind of coincidentally, by accident. When by accident the circumstances are right. And very often it happens as a result of enjoyment of something special. That can be a food or a drink, if it's really very special. In Korea you have kunjung yori. Kunjung yori is royal cuisine. Why is kunjung yori different than normal cuisine? That is because a lot of attention is paid to detail. A lot of attention is paid to balance of taste between sour, bitter, sweet, etc. Salty. What is the purpose here? To bring the king or the queen to heaven with very nice food. It is the whole purpose of French cuisine, Thai cuisine, Chinese cuisine, Korean kunjung yori. The whole purpose is to bring you to heaven. Why would you spend the whole day in the kitchen while you can make a meal in 15 minutes? Why? Because of Sahasrara Chakra. So under the enjoyment of it can be food or drink, it can also be beauty, like art. Art, countries that have become wealthy spend a lot of money, like the big companies, to create spaces where citizens can be sattvic. So they build museums. They build art spaces, theaters, where you can go, enjoy, and without knowing it, your energy rises up. It is to cultivate the population. So these kind of institutions always receive a lot of subsidy from the government. They are hardly ever profitable. On the contrary, a lot of money has to be poured in, and still governments keep pouring money in, because it is important to have a population that has energy on higher levels. The higher the level of energy and the more people have energy on those levels, the better for society, the more harmonious society will be, and that also translates into economic health of a society. So very interesting. You find, without knowing it, you find elements of what we do in normal daily life in modern society. And the purpose really is to let consciousness go as high as possible. Now, in daily life, having a sense of heaven or paradise happens very rarely. If you practice yoga, however, you do not depend on circumstances. You do not have to wait until accidentally the circumstances are right to allow sattva or paradise to occur. Or spend a lot of money on a very expensive restaurant, for that matter, to have a moment of heaven that next day is gone. So what we do with yoga is we take the bull by the horns, we take control, and we create that condition regardless of the circumstances. Not waiting for accidental positive circumstances to occur. We create them by having discipline, practicing on a fairly regular basis. So regardless of status, culture, nationality, everybody can achieve heaven. That is the good news. The bad news is, I'm saying with a smile, you have to do many difficult things for it. It starts with your practice, but that's only the start. Your practice leads to increased sensitivity and consciousness, and that will then lead to the necessity to make adjustments in life. Adjustments to things, elements of life that are not easy to change. Like the job that you have, like the house that you live in, the family that you are part of. These are often the elements in life that keep us from achieving sattva or paradise. And because you know about non-violence and all the other things that we learned so far, the moral principles and precepts, you put them into practice, so you're not going to go through walls. You're not going to create your own heaven by causing hell for other people, your colleagues or your family members or other people that you are dealing with. So it's a process that takes time and very careful planning and a lot of hard work. Good. What I like about the illustration here on page 1 on the left side at the top is that the chakras are clearly separated. Usually they are all at a distance that is equal, but you see that at the bottom, those 3 chakras are very close together, even overlapping, which is indicative of that phenomenon of the gastric fire, or the danjan or hara principle that we talked about before. Then there is quite a gap, and there is the heart chakra standing on its own. The heart chakra is the first goal. So by creating a bigger ball of energy, by fusing the 3 lower chakras, we break through, we breach the glass ceiling at the diaphragm. And from instinctive life, we then go up to the heart, to the higher emotions and desires. Then you have the throat chakra, also separate. And then you see Ajna chakra and the crown chakra, in fact, within one circle. The Ajna chakra is distinct. It is distinct, its function is distinct, but it appears in this illustration as the 2 being part of one function, one organ, so to speak, which is what they are. One does not work without the other. Ajna chakra is, if you look at it from the yoga point of view, we talked about Ajna chakra before as the boss, the general, but actually the real leader is the crown chakra. And Ajna chakra is more like a secretary that passes the messages, that interprets the information, not only from the crown chakra, but also from the chakras below, when you have a feeling, an emotion, or a desire. The reason why still, because Ajna chakra, we today say, actually is a secretary, an aide, but still we call it the commander-in-chief, the boss. That is because without mind control, we cannot do anything. Without mind control, we have no discipline. Without mind control, we cannot create our own circumstances. And therefore, we will always depend on accidental circumstances. It is through the power of the mind control, that we can literally take control of our circumstances, of our lives, of our dharma into the future. Not easy, we have to work, but yoga gives you all the tools that you need. And actually, thinking about it is much harder than actually just practicing yoga correctly. If you stop thinking about it and just practice yoga correctly, all the rest happens naturally. And that is what is really amazing about the whole system of yoga. It is the reason why I insist on teaching yoga this way. Not a fancy yoga studio class, which is okay if you're not interested in development, in growth, in changing your life. But that yoga has a potential to truly make a difference, that is not a fairy tale. But it only works if it is done correctly. Because as long as you keep moving, as long as you keep listening to music during your practice, there is no sattva, so there is no manifestation of higher consciousness. But do yoga correctly, standing still, in silence, and magic occurs. It really does. And all you have to do is be patient. Practice, that is of course the most important. But there is a reason why in the yamas and the niyamas you learned about non-desire and contentment. Because human beings, when we start something new, we want result. Not tomorrow, yesterday. We are naturally impatient. And that is one of the big stumbling blocks for yoga practitioners. Practice contentment. Be satisfied with the small improvements that you notice every day. Increasing strength, increasing flexibility, increasing sense of well-being. You feel better, having more energy and being more sattvic. Then, if you compare tomorrow with yesterday, you think, what is this? I don't see any different. But if you compare next year with today, or today with last year, then you start to see difference. Not a small difference, a huge difference. Still, after 36 years of practicing yoga, I see difference, constantly evolving, constantly growing. It made me realize that this process never stops until the day that you die. If you stay active, if you keep engaging. Because you will see in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika that we will read before asana practice, that Hatha Yoga Pradipika is very clear about vital energy. Describing it in very dramatic terms, using the word death, but we will come to that after asana practice. It's very interesting. All the dots connect. All the pieces of the puzzle fall into place. You start to see that yoga is not compartmentalized the way that it is usually presented. Everything has its function, everything has its importance, and there is a logic and a coherence that is, when you start seeing it, it's just amazing. You see on the first page, just above the last paragraph, the characteristics, and I have to highlight something here. In sattva, this chakra expresses itself in intuition and the characteristics described as that of a king. then you see the next sentence, in a state of light Shakti domination, this chakra expresses itself in intelligence. And in a state of light Shiva domination, it expresses itself in love or ananda. Light has been, how do you call it?
Italicized.
Say again?
Italicized.
Okay, it has been italicized. The text is straight, and then the word light is leaning to draw your attention there. Why a state of light Shakti domination or state of light Shiva domination? Because the most important is that there is a Shiva, that there is a Sattva domination in the first place. Because without Sattva, only Rajas or only Tamas does not lead to either intelligence or love. So there is a firm foundation of Sattva with little fluctuations between Shiva and Shakti domination. That is where you function at the top of your abilities. Without the fluctuations between Tamas and Rajas or Shiva Shakti domination, there is no functioning at all. You are in heaven permanently. That is theoretically or philosophically, that is the ideal condition of the spiritual practitioner is to go to heaven and not come back anymore. That means there is total sattva with no fluctuation between tamas and rajas. I've never met anybody in such a condition, but it sounds like very nice. There is a story about it's an anecdote about a Buddha standing in front of the gates of heaven. It's a symbolical story, of course. I like that story very much. Buddha has reached enlightenment. He meditated for years, went through ups and downs, and he came into a condition of total sattva. So he was standing in front of the gates to heaven, and then one more time looked over his shoulder. So he was about to go up into heaven, never to have to come back to earthly life. Then he looked over his shoulder, and his heart filled with compassion. He saw the suffering of mankind. And instead of being selfish and going into heaven, he turned around, went back down to earth to make this world a better place. Interesting, huh? And there is a paragraph about ego. We talked about ego before. That's also very important. Many spiritual people, teachers say ego must die. It sounds very scary, but it gives the wrong impression that you have to get rid of ego. That is not the case. Everybody has an ego. It is the reason why you are who you are. Without ego, you would be very passive, lazy, not undertaking anything, having no ambition. Ego, that is your core. Ego is your characteristic, it's your karma from the past. And in this life, that manifests. So what is this thing with ego having to die? And I'm telling you, it cannot die. Everybody has an ego. The thing about ego is that we must learn to understand it and then to control it. To control ego, we must deal with our identifications. I'm a yogi. My yoga is the best in the world, and you and you and you are all fake yogis. That's ego. I'm Dutch. No, I'm from Amsterdam. people from Rotterdam, Utrecht, The Hague, they're all peasants. Fools. That's ego. I graduated economics, business administration. Who are you? That's ego. You say something about my dogs, and I get angry. I feel insulted. That is ego. So ego, most people talk about ego without actually understanding, but ego is how you identify with yourself. To make ego die, figuratively, we need to get rid of all these identifications. I'm not a yogi, I'm just sitting here sharing my insights with you. And other people, they do it in another way. That is not good or bad, that is their way. People from Utrecht, The Hague, Rotterdam, they're no less than people from Amsterdam. Dutch, German, Belgian. You noticed last week or the week before, we made lots of jokes about Belgian people, especially how stupid they are. But Belgian people are much more spiritual than Dutch people, I noticed. Making jokes is good. Humor elevates energy to higher levels. It elevates, it lifts the spirit, literally. But disparaging other people, which is often part of joking, especially between nationalities, that is not completely fair. If you do it without malice, it serves its purpose. But if you really think that Belgian people are stupid, then there is something wrong with it. Because in the same way, Belgian people have their own thoughts about Dutch people. How stingy they are and how narrow-minded they are and what have you. And that's also not fair. So ego really is about rising above all those identifications. And that really is not easy. You identify with your name. You identify with your culture. You identify with your education, your family. And if other people touch on that, you become furious. I dare say that all the conflicts and wars find their origin in ego. So the more we are aware of ego and able to control that, the less conflict there will be in the world, and the more we will prosper. It's not easy. Even after decades of understanding how it works and doing effort to not identify and not be controlled by it, just in an unguarded moment, somebody can trigger your ego while you're driving your car, or when you're walking your dog in the park and somebody makes a nasty comment about them, or just in the supermarket where somebody bumps their cart from behind into your heels, or you know, there's so many situations where ego can be triggered. So the point is not to completely control it. The point is simply be aware of it. Emotion would not occur without ego. Emotion is identification with a thought, fueled by ego. So when struck by emotion, try to avoid immediately reacting upon it. Try in any situation, in any circumstance, to find a moment in which you can take a deep breath and just reflect on what is happening, why you are feeling that rage inside you, that anger. The moment that you're conscious of it, that is when your ego dies. The moment that you realize your ego, it doesn't control you anymore. And that realization happens in a moment of reflection. So when you are in a situation where ego is triggered, you're angry, you're furious, try to find a moment to withdraw yourself, take a deep breath. And very naturally your inside will then calm things down. Okay? That's it. Sahasrara Chakra. Questions? Yes?
So, can I speak in Korean?
Try.
Thanks.
Test my Korean ability. You can pump up my ego. Or not. Or destroy it. Go ahead.
Yes. Actually, you can answer in English.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Or in Dutch.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
I will test your Dutch.
You challenge his ego.
Go ahead, JT.
화나거나 악한 감정에 대한 이거는 캄다운할 수 있지만 만약 즐거움, 많이 기쁜 거 이런 거에 대한 또 이제 캄다운이 필요한 거지.
Okay, so now this is what is happening. I understand to some extent what you are asking, but I don't get the nuance, and that makes it difficult for me to reply properly. So can you try in English?
Okay. So I understand. I need observe or I need to calm down my feeling when I got angry or got something
Emotional?
upset. Yes, emotional. But if I feel like very merry or
Yeah?
very pleased,
Yeah?
so do I need to calm down?
Good question. This is a question about negative emotions and positive emotions. Good question. In the end, emotions are emotions. And they're all disturbing. However, we live in a world of duality. There's always up and down, dark and light. So of course, our first focus is on positive things. Or when we talk about getting rid of things, our first focus is on negative things. Your question is very sophisticated, very good. In the first place, as yogis, becoming more sensitive and conscious and aware of the need to learn to control, we get rid of negative things. We try to control our anger, our emotions to some extent. And in the beginning, that's very nice. But when you get rid of the negative things, what is left is the positive things. And then you start to notice that not only negative things cause distraction and disturbance, you now start to notice that after you got rid of the negative things, positive things actually have the same effect, the same influence. So first, It's a natural process. Every person becoming conscious, every yogi, or other people finding their way towards consciousness, the first stage is that you get rid of negative sentiments, negative influences, negative emotions. Because you feel they disturb you, and to make up for the negative emotion, you replace them by a positive emotion, and then you have a certain balance, right? You find compensation in positive things to counter negative things. But now you have no negative things anymore, or you have reduced them. The positive thing that used to give compensation now becomes a distraction in itself. And actually, if you look at it, the disturbance is the same as the negative. But because we live in a world of duality, we think in terms of good and bad. But in yoga, there is no good and bad. There is only sattva and the disturbance of it. Harmony, disharmony. And in the end, positive emotion, enjoyment even, can also lead to disharmony. You will notice in your development that you become more and more solitary. For most people, it is very important that we enjoy ourselves when we have time. So we work hard, we study hard, but we compensate for all the hard work that we do in life by entertainment, by going on a vacation to a nice tropical island or to some exotic place or some special place. Doesn't have to be tropical, it can be cold too, but you can go to Finland and enjoy the beautiful environment, nature. But we do that in fact to compensate. We spend money to create heaven, to compensate for all the effort that we do. You notice that when you create more and more harmony in your life, the need for going on a vacation, the need for meeting friends and going to a nightclub or going to enjoy yourself anywhere you go with your friends, your need reduces more and more. You find yourself more and more choosing, not being forced, choosing to stay in peace, to stay connected with yourself. That is a natural process. But as long as you feel the need, go out and enjoy. What I noticed is that because friends still invite you to come on Saturday evening and go to a bar or something. And while enjoying that in the past, I found myself standing in the corner looking at everything and everybody and thinking, what the hell am I doing here? I'd rather be at home reading a book. So when you are in a disharmonious condition, which is very normal and very common, you enjoy being in such an environment like a bar or a club or a restaurant, and because you are on that wavelength, of restlessness and disharmony, and you enjoy the food, you enjoy the beer or whatever it is that you do there. But when you become more and more harmonious, you do not like to go to disharmonious places anymore, which in the past were exciting, and now they just become distracting, disturbing. But as long as you do not feel the need to stay away from it, go, enjoy, eat, drink, socialize with your friends, until you start to notice that you don't want to be there anymore. in the beginning you may think that you're not normal, that you have become abnormal. That's not the case. It's very natural development. So give into it. If you don't give into it, you destroy your sattva. You disturb the process that you are in. It's a process of trial and error. People will tell you, maybe even like, hey, JT, we used to have fun together, but you're so boring these days. Then because of ego, you don't like that they say that. So, okay, I will join you next Saturday again. And then you go and then you think, no, this is not for me anymore. So try, experiment. If it doesn't feel good anymore, try to stay home. Or at least another activity that is less distracting. And if that does not feel good, you can make another adjustment. It's a very dynamic process in which you constantly evolve. You're constantly making adjustments, evolving, developing, growing. And you will become more and more boring in other people's eyes. Instead of external, your experience is becoming more and more internal. Okay? Good question. Thank you, JT. Let's have a short break. Just in time.